Welcome to my channel, Tauya Matope. My first name is Patrick, but I prefer to be called Tauya Matope, as you can see from the name of my channel. This video, I'm going to post it out for all of you, since you have been subscribed to my channel, but you've never put a name, or you've never put a face to the name Tauya Matope. So this is me. For some of you who don't know me, that's Tauya Matope talking to you today. In this video, I'm going to talk to you a brief history about myself for you to know me, and so that some of the videos that I'll be posting in the future, you will know the context as to where all those things are coming from. My name is Patrick. Tauya is my middle name, and the surname is Matope. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I've been in England now for almost 7 years, working and living in England. I've lived in London before moving to Midlands, where I'm living now. Just sort of like a brief history about myself. That's the reason why I'm posting this video, so that you are able to interact with me and know me personally to a personal extent. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, in a province called Mashonaland Central Province, from a place called Madziva, a village called Nyamaruro. For those who come from Nyamaruro, shout out to all of you. And for all those who come from Bindura, which is my hometown, shout out to all of you. Yes. I've lived in Zimbabwe up until 2006. That's when I left Zimbabwe. I'm a qualified social worker. We've been practicing in 3 different countries so far since I qualified. I qualified in 2004, and I went to the University of Zimbabwe in Harare. I finished my social work degree in 2004. Then I worked in Zimbabwe for a couple of years. But maybe let me rewind a little bit prior to me qualifying as a social worker. I come from a family it's a big family. I'm not going to mention the number of children we are, but I can assure you it's a big family. For those who know where I come from, in Nyamaruro, that's where I'm originally from, and I still have some siblings, I still have parents living there. Yeah, so that's basically about me. I'm somebody who went to school. Before I turned 5, I was already in grade 1. And I've never repeated any grade since then, up until university. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I just want to put some few things into context. Up until university, I've always been the youngest person in my class. And looking back, I realized that it's because I went to school well ahead of my age group. And because I never repeated any grade or any form, it meant that I was always in class with people who were older than me. I'll put another video later on where I'll expand more in regards to that. But for now, I'm going to pack it and leave it there. Yeah, so in terms of schooling, primary school, I went to 2 schools. That is Mupfure Primary School, also in Mashonaland Central. So for all of you who went to Mupfure Primary School, shout out to all of you. You are my former schoolmates. And then my parents moved on to Nyamaruro Primary School. My parents were teachers, by the way. My mom was a teacher and my dad was a school principal. So they were moving schools quite a lot when we were young. So they moved schools to a school called Nyamaruro Primary School, which was a school just in my village. So for all of you who went to Nyamaruro Primary School, shout out to you. Yes, I'm sure some of you may know me already. Yeah. So I went to Nyamaruro Primary School, from a primary school up to grade 7, which is called grade 7 in Zimbabwe. And then from grade 7, I moved on to Bradley Institute. It was called Bradley Institute back then. Now it's called Bradley High School. So by the time I went to Bradley, there wasn't even any A-level at that time. So you would only go to Bradley for Form 1 to Form 4. When I went to Bradley, there were many other siblings of mine who also went to the same school after me, some of them before me. So I would say that's a school where most of us from my family went to school. Yeah, so I was at Bradley from Form 1 to Form 4, finished at Bradley 1997. So shout out to all of you who were at Bradley Secondary School or Bradley Institute up until 1997 or thereafter, those who know me. So I finished at Bradley in 1997. Like I said earlier on, there was no A-level, there was no GCSE advanced level at Bradley Institute at that time. So you had to look for another school where you could go and do your A-levels. So that was Zimbabwe back then in the 1990s. For those of you who were born by then or who were there by then. Then I moved schools to Mavoradona High School, which is in Mount Darwin, still in the same province, Mashonaland Central. However, Mavoradona High School is somewhere near the border with Mozambique. So shout out to all of you who went to Mavoradona High School. So if you're following in this video, you can tell that Mavoradona High School was my fourth school that I went to since I was in grade 1 up until to A level, which is Form 6 in Zimbabwe. So you can tell that Mavoradona was my fourth school that I went to from primary school. Yeah, so I went to Mavoradona High School for my advanced GCSE advanced level. I went to Mavoradona from 1998 up until 1999 because A level in Zimbabwe is done in 2 years. Yeah, so I went from 98 to 1999. I was doing arts at Mavoradona High School. For those of you who were in the art school, shout out to all of you. For all those who were in Mavoradona during that time, shout out to all of you as well. For all of those of you who know me, shout out to all of you as well. So I was at Mavoradona up until 1999. That's when I finished my advanced level. From then on, I proceeded to the University of Zimbabwe to study social work. I'll post another video as to why I ended up or why I went to the University of Zimbabwe to study social work. I'll post another video later on to explain all those things. But for now, we just need to know that I went to the University of Zimbabwe and studied social work, which wasn't fashionable those days. But looking back, I think I made the right choice to study social work. And to be honest with you, I enjoy my work as a social worker. And I've grown to love being a social worker as well for the past more than 18 years that I've been practicing as a social worker. Yes, I've been practicing as a social worker for more than 18 years now. Or for close to 18 years, I would say. So I went to the University of Zimbabwe. I started my first year in the University of Zimbabwe in the year 2000. If you remember, year 2000, that's when they were talking about Y2K compliant, and blah, 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 blah. I was doing my first year by then at uni. I can remember those days as if it was yesterday, because they always say school days are always the best, isn't it? I can remember those days as if it was yesterday, because I had some of my good times when I was at uni. So shout out to all of those who went to University of Zimbabwe. Right, so I went to the University of Zimbabwe, studied social work. For all of those who went to University of Zimbabwe at the time, from 2000 or before, you know very well, social work was offered outside campus. So we had the School of Social Work in town. That's where we were living, and that's where we were doing our studies. We had 2 hostels called Montrose and Georgette hostels. So I lived in both hostels really, and I also lived at the main campus when I was in my second year. Because remember, first year you would spend the first year doing social work courses, and then second year you would go and do courses in psychology, sociology, and ecology, and all those kind of things. So second year I was living at the main campus at UZ, University of Zimbabwe in Mount Pleasant. So shout out to all those who lived at Georgette and also at Montrose Hostel. Yeah, so I finished my social work degree in 2004. And then I worked in Zimbabwe for a couple of years. So when I finished my social work degree, yeah, I worked a little bit for the Home Office in Harare in Zimbabwe. For all of those who know the Ministry of Home Affairs. I was working in the passport office for about 6 months. The reason being, there were no open posts within the Department of Social Services by then. So if you know, the government of Zimbabwe, you're employed by the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission posts you to where they think you can utilize your skills. So by then, I was posted to the passport office. I've got a few colleagues of mine who were also posted to the Home Office or to the Ministry of Home Affairs, but they were sent to the Immigration Department. Shout out to Chris Mkangaya, shout out to Dennis Chiwa, who were at the Immigration Office, but I was posted to the Passport Office. So I left after 6 months because I wanted to practice my role as a social worker, the thing that I'd gone to uni for, which, I was qualified to do. So I left and then went to the Department of Social Services by then, which was, I hope it's still under that ministry, which was under the Ministry of Public Services, Labor and Social Welfare in Harare, at Makombe Building. That's where I was based. Shout out to all those colleagues who are still at Makombe Buildings, who are still working for the Department of Social Services. You are also walking in my footsteps. Thank you for doing that amazing job, which I enjoyed doing for 2 years. I was posted at Makombe Building, Makombe Complex. They used to call it Makombe Complex because that's where many government departments were based at the time. So I was at Makombe Building for a couple of years, doing social work. Before the end of my 2 years with the Department of Social Welfare, I was on secondment to a local council called Zimba Rural District Council as a housing and community services manager for about 6 months. If you remember, for all those who are in government, you all know what secondment is. I'm not going to dwell much into it, but just a little brief snippet as to what happened with me during that time. So I went to be the Housing and Community Services Manager for Zimba Rural District Council. For those who know Zimba, that's where our former president, comes from. So I was at Zimba at Murombezi Growth Point for about 6 months, and then I left. That's the time I left Zimbabwe and went to Namibia to practice as a social worker as well, to work as a social worker. I was in Namibia for 10 years. I worked in Namibia for 10 years as a social worker. In Namibia, I was based in a town called Kobabis, which is near the border, almost about 115 kilometers from the border with Botswana. That's where I was living and working for 10 years. So that was 2006 up until 2016. That's when I left Namibia to come to England to practice again as a social worker. So if you heard from the beginning of my video, I mentioned about practicing in 3 different countries. So these are the 3 different countries that I've practiced in: Zimbabwe, Namibia, and England. Right. So I moved to England in 2016, and when I moved to England, I got a job as a social worker with the London Borough of Sutton. I've been with the London. I worked with the London Borough of Sutton for almost 6.5 years, something like that. Yeah. So within the London Borough of Sutton, I would say I really had some of my good practice and good times within the London Borough of Sutton, because that's where they gave me the platform to progress to be a manager within social care in England. It all happened when I was in Sutton. So I came to Sutton to work in 2006 as a social worker in the safeguarding team, child protection. I worked with them for a couple of years. Yeah, so I was with the child protection team for about 2.5 years. Or 2 years and a few months that I was with them. Yeah, so I was with the safeguarding or child protection team. They used to call it the family support and care planning team. I was with it for about 2.5 years, or I would say 2 years and a few months. Um, so I was with that team since I came to England, and then before, I would say for a year, and then Saturn piloted the locality model, and I was chosen to be part of the pilot to start the locality model. So yeah, I was still with the child protection and safeguarding team. Then I moved to the pilot model. At that time, the pilot team was the Red East locality team, because there are three localities in Saturn. There's the Red East, the Blue North, and the Green West. So yeah, I was with the Red East locality team. We were doing Section 47s, working on child protection cases, child in need, Section 7, Section 37 reports, viability assessments, you can name it. All of that, I've done it. All of that, I've done it. So after gaining all that experience, I thought, you know what, let me try something else now. And then I moved on to the looked after children's team, where I also had some of the good times of my life, traveled England, up and about, Isle of Wight, Essex, Northampton, Wolverhampton, up to Cumbria. All those places, I got to know them because of being in the looked after children's team, because children can be placed anywhere in England, even up in Scotland. So you have to go and visit them. You have to go and see them. That's how I ended up knowing bits and pieces of England. Most parts of England, I knew them when I was in the looked after children's team. So shout out to all those who are in the looked after children's team. That's another advantage of being in the children's looked after team. Yeah, so shout out to all those who are working in the looked after children's team. I know you are doing an amazing job. There's lots of traveling. There's lots of paperwork to be done. We have done all of that. CPRs, looked after children's reviews, later life letters, adoption papers, all those kind of things. I've been there. I've done that. PEP reviews, care planning, long-term matching paperwork, together and apart assessments, life story books, later life letters, placement stabilization meetings, strategy meetings, missing protocols, LADO referrals, direct work with children. Did I mention life story work? Yes, life story work. I've been there. I've done that. Yeah, so I was with the looked after children's team for a year and a half, almost. Yeah, or a year and a half. Yeah, I would say. And I had amazing colleagues. I had an amazing manager whom I'm still in touch with up until this day. Shout out to you, Sarah. Thank you so much for giving me those opportunities. Then I moved on from the looked after children's team on secondment. Remember, I mentioned about secondment earlier on in my video when I spoke about when I was in the Department of Social Services. Yeah, so there was another opportunity again for secondment, this time in England, for me to be an assistant team manager in a safeguarding team, child protection team. Remember, when I came to England, I was in a child protection and safeguarding team. So there was an opportunity for secondment in that team, not necessarily the team where I was, but one of the other locality teams. So there was an opportunity for me to be an assistant team manager on secondment, which was initially for 6 months. So I applied for this position. Shout out to you, Andrea. Thank you so much for offering me that opportunity, giving me, believing in me, and giving me the opportunity to work with you, which was an amazing time of my life. I don't want to lie. I really enjoyed my time in that team. So I had that opportunity to be an assistant team manager. And I grabbed the opportunity. I went. And I know very well my manager at the time, within 2 weeks, called my other manager in the looked after children's team and said, Patrick is not coming back. He's going to stay with us forever. So if you want to look for another social worker for the LAC team, please go ahead and do so. That was the kind of faith that my manager had in me. So shout out to you, Andrea. Thank you so much for offering me that opportunity. And like I said earlier on, I'm still in good contact with all my managers that I've had since I've been in England, including Tapua. Shout out to you, Tapua. Thank you. Shout out to you, Michelle Fitch. Thank you so much, Michelle Grady, for offering me those opportunities in the FSCP team. Yeah, so I was an assistant team manager in the family support, child protection and care planning team, which was or which is a safeguarding and child protection team, basically, in the other locality. They used to call it the Blue Central locality team, and then it changed names to the Blue North locality team. So shout out to all the colleagues in the Blue North locality team. Thank you so much for working with me and for being there for me when I was in the team. So I worked as an assistant team manager, I would say up until March 2021. March 2021, there's a reason why it was up until March 2021. There was transformation which happened during that time in Saturn, where they kind of reorganized the teams and also transformed children's services as a whole. Part of the transformation meant that we no longer had a referral and assessment service as a standalone team. It was going to be combined with the safeguarding teams. So with that restructuring came opportunities. Who am I to lose or to lose other opportunities? I jumped onto the opportunity, and then I was a team manager by then. So I became a team manager in April of 2021. Is that correct? Yeah, April of 2021, somewhere there. So I was a manager since then, team manager in the same locality team up until I left Saturn. And then when I left Saturn, I went to join Coventry Children Services. That's where I am at the moment. So yeah, that's a little bit of a background about me. So for some of you who want to put a name or put a face to the channel or put a name to the channel or whatever you want to call it, that's me, yours truly, Patrick. Yeah, so I'm now living in the Midlands, and I am with Coventry Children's Services at the moment. Yeah, so that's a little bit of sort of like background of me, really. So shout out to all those who have subscribed to my channel. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell, so whenever I post videos, you'll be able to watch and see what it is that I would have posted. Thank you so much. Peace out. Thank you.